The most important work of your life is the work you do within your soul. This is Home Improvement for the Soul.
Hello, and welcome to Home Improvement for the Soul. I'm Maddie Cheers. Thank you so much for joining me again today. And we are going to continue taking a look at the Haudenosaunee, the Iroquois Confederacy, Great Law of Peace, and how it influenced our own Constitution, the U.S. Constitution, and how it differs also. So I just want to remind you again that, as we discussed last week, when the great peacemaker came and delivered this message from the Creator about how we are intended to live in peace, how we can govern ourselves and create a world where everyone's voice is heard, where all the laws are fair to everyone, and where men and women are equal, one of the things he said was, if you want peace, you must decide. Do you want to be right or do you want to be fair? And that is kind of what we're faced with today and every day, even in our dealings with each other. We are always faced with those decisions when we have to deal in any relationship. But the most important relationships that we can have as a society have to do with how we're governing ourselves. So, when we look at a government where everyone's voice is heard, where all the laws are fair to everyone, and where men and women are equal, we are looking mostly at what we would call a democratic republic. However, theirs was very different than ours, though some of the best ideas for ours comes out of this. Obviously, in the very beginning, the Founding Fathers did not think men and women should be equal, and that might be part of the energy that's knocked us off course and kept us off course. They also only have two political parties, the Democrats, the Republicans. We're very familiar with that. There are actually more, but nobody pays any attention to them, sadly. And for us, those two parties, that was not something Thomas Jefferson ever wanted, by the way. Jefferson thought that having only two political parties was actually evil, that this would never, ever sustain the peace. And he also did not believe in majority rule when it came to making a law. He wanted consensus, which is what the Haudenosaunee have. So here's how their government works. And it works basically starting with leadership. And this, I think, is the biggest problem we face today. We have a lack of leaders who put us before themselves. When I look at all the leaders that I see all over the world, I see leaders that are only interested in maintaining their own power, their own control, or getting more power and getting more control, even in our own government. They're not talking about what's good for everybody. They're not talking about being fair. They're saying, oh, I've got the best way. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong. Unbelievable that it's 2023 and we're still doing, it's worse. It's worse than it ever was. There actually was a time when people in government would compromise, but that's not happening now. It's my way or the highway. And that's the way it is mostly throughout the world. And we're limiting our freedom of speech. Everybody's voice must be heard. We are limiting that idea to the point where only voices that agree with the people in power are being heard. So you could say that today, though I don't think we started out this way, I think that originally the Founding Fathers did embrace the idea, obviously, of free speech. Today, we are just kicking it to the curb. We truly are. And that's very sad. And it causes a lot of anxiety and stress for us as individuals because you don't know what you can say. My sister this morning put up a beautiful, nice sentiment about coming to peace, about remaining calm, and she got the nastiest responses to the point where she took it all down. Now, I know a lot of those responses are bot generated. They're not actually humans, but it doesn't matter. How is it that you can put something up that's talking about helping the world come to peace so that everybody's children can live a healthy and happy life, everybody's, and people send you hate mail and hate responses. It's incredible. The very same people that don't want you to stop using hate speech. It is kind of astounding. Hate is hate, period, the end. All the same energy. When you hate, all the universe knows, all the creator knows is that you're a hater. That's it. Doesn't matter who you hate. Doesn't matter if you think you're right with your hating. The peacemaker told a very interesting story when he got people to stop these wars of revenge. He said, listen, and do remember that when he told the people to bury their weapons of war, he said, along with your weapons, you must bury all the hatred and greed in your hearts. Because wherever there is hatred and greed, there will never be peace. So, you want to bury it, or you just want to be hateful? That's a question you got to ask yourself, right? So his story of revenge and why we shouldn't have it went like this. So they say there was a young boy walking along one day, and he's walking along, and he's kind of hot, kind of tired, and he sees a big hill, and there's some shade from the hill, so he lays down in the shade. Well, no sooner does he lay down than he hears this thrashing and crashing, this huge noise coming from the other side of the hill. He's curious. He crawls up to the top of the hill, and he looks over, and he sees an amazing sight. He sees a huge black snake trying to swallow a gigantic bullfrog. And the snake is trying to swallow the bullfrog, and the bullfrog's trying to get away, and he's knocking down trees, and he's throwing up boulders, and the snake's tail is thrashing back and forth, ripping up the ground, ripping up the earth. And the boy feels really sorry for the bullfrog. And he says to the bullfrog, "Bullfrog, I'm way too little to help you, but why don't you do to the snake what the snake is doing to you?" And the bullfrog looks around, and he swallows the tail of the snake. And the snake is swallowing the bullfrog is swallowing the snake swallowing bullfrog swallowing the snake, until poof, they both disappear. And the peacemaker said to the people, that's what will happen to you. If you continue down this path of revenge, you will swallow each other up, you will destroy the earth around you, and there will be nothing left for your children. And eventually, there will be no children. And they say that it was that story that began to convince people to live in peace. That and the fact that the peacemaker realized when he did that condolence ceremony for Iowanta, he realized that he was going to have to go to the women first. He was going to have to go to these mothers and these grandmothers that had been kicked out of power, that had been abused, whose sons had been stolen from them and taken to war and died, most of them never returning. He was going to have to go to these women and give these women a way to grieve, to have time to grieve for the losses of their loved ones, to grieve for the loss of peace and harmony. And that once the women had a chance to grieve and they could restore their souls, that then they would be strong enough to go to the men and say, no, you are not taking our children anymore. You can kill us. You can kill each and every one of us. But that's what it's going to take our children. And they say that that's what happened between the story and convincing the women, after they had been allowed to grieve, that they had to convince the men. They did. They went to those men, and they were successful. And the interesting thing, too, is, after a while, people get pretty tired of fighting. A lot of people that go off to war threaten, you either go to war or we'll kill you here. You either serve in the army, or we're going to kill you and torture you, or we'll kill your family. You either give us your sons, or we'll kill your family. And we'll kill your son anyway, so... And they get intimidated into becoming soldiers and following people who only want control, who only want to rule over them. So the peacemaker realizes all of this. He gets the women from all of the 9 clans on his side, and they restructure everything. They manage to bring everything back. And the first thing that the peacemaker says to them is that in order to have peace, you have to have the right kind of leader. So there are rules about who can be a leader. First, he said, only men can make laws, but only women can choose the men who make the laws, and only women will have final approval of the laws. So you have 2 kinds of leaders, and in their government, things are divided that way. So the women have to choose both the female leaders, the Yogoyane, the woman of the good, the clan mother who runs the village, calls the women together. All the women in a clan have to agree on who the leader is. The men then that are chosen to be the lawmakers, the Loyane, the man of the good, they go off to the Grand Council. They make laws. In the old days, in the beginning, there were 50 of them. All 50 of the men had to agree in order for the law to pass. All 50, consensus. And, by the way, Thomas Jefferson, like I said last week, did not want majority rule. He thought it was evil. He thought every law we should make should be by consensus, that we should have our people before ourselves enough that we have the patience and the respect to sit and listen to each other. So in any council meeting, the person speaking is holding wampum, which means they're telling the truth, and they are the only person allowed to speak. The other thing that's very interesting about the council meeting is all council meetings, whether it's the Grand Council, a clan council, the women's council, the men's council, all clan council meetings start with their very first ceremony, the very first one that was forgotten, what we call in our language the Thanksgiving address, which gives thanks to everything in nature that gives up its life for us, that serves us. Because not only does nature teach us peace and harmony, nature is already generous. So they say that nature is above us. They look at the world in reverse from the way we look at it. Nature is above us. We're the ones on the bottom because we forget how to be real human beings. And we're the only ones that forget our instructions. So when they do this Thanksgiving address, they do this so that they enter into these council meetings with what they call a good mind. So they don't really have good and evil like we describe it. What they say is people have either a good mind, a mind that is connected to the goodness of the Creator, because the Creator only wants goodness in the world, only gave us goodness, only gave us love. And through this love, we are here. So you can either have that good mind, or you can have the quick mind. And the quick mind is I want it now, I want it now, I want it now. And I'm going to do anything I can to get it and get it my way. So to them, there is no such thing as a holy war. There's no such thing as a war in the name of God. That would be a blasphemy to them. And I've actually heard everyone who's ever taught me about this say exactly that. That's blasphemy to them. The Creator does not want us killing each other. As a matter of fact, when a man is elected to become a Loyane, he can never have shed a drop of human blood. He cannot have been involved in a war. He cannot have punched somebody out. He cannot have shed human blood. So when they're looking at these people to become leaders, when they're watching the boys and girls grow up, these are the character qualities they are looking for. Contemplate this and then think about how many of our leaders have these character qualities. You must be peaceful. You must be kind, respectful, responsible, honest, unselfish, humble, open-minded, love your family, never ask for power. You can't even say to your mom, "Mom, when I grow up, I want to be a leader." That's it, you're out. Because if you want power, they're never going to give it to you. Why? Look around the world today. That should answer that question. Why should we not be giving power to people who want power? So, Peacemaker was smart enough to know this. And there are some other rules. I'm not going to go into all of those right now, but I am going to focus on those character qualities one more time. Peaceful, kind, respectful, responsible, honest, unselfish, humble, open-minded, love your family, never ask for power. Those are the kind of people that when they promise to put their people before themselves, and they must promise that, you can trust them to actually do that, to actually put you before them. And interestingly, if they break that promise, 3 strikes, they're out. So the whole idea we have of impeachment, that comes from them. The first time somebody breaks their promise to their people, they're given a warning, private warning. They never break it again. They stay a leader for life. Second time they break it, a public warning in front of their whole clan. They never break it again. They stay a leader for life. But the third time, they are kicked out of office. And in the case of the men, they are sent away. They may not return to the village. They have to live on their own. And in the old days, when you're living on your own, naked and afraid, it's between you and the Creator whether or not you make it, because breaking your promise to your people is considered a criminal offense. To put yourself before your people once you have promised not to. Peaceful, kind, respectful, responsible, honest, unselfish, humble, open-minded, love your family, never ask for power. Even the way we elect our leaders, we have these campaigns, and what do they spend their time doing? Not talking about what they're going to do for us, talking about how bad the other guy is. I had considered running for office once, and when I talked to one of the parties, they wanted me to trash the current president. So if you're going to run for us, yeah, good idea. We'd like you to run. I trained for the whole thing. But, you know, you're going to have to, trash so-and-so. And I said, no. I'll be happy to talk about what I think should be happening in government and what I feel I could do and where I feel we need to go and how I could help and how I can put you before me. But I'm not going to trash somebody else. I am not going to, in following what the Haudenosaunee talk about, no gossip. When they pick their leaders, the women don't sit there and go, oh, well, I don't like him because, one time, no. So I told them, I'm sorry, I'm not going to do that. And that was it for me. I was not going to represent one of the 2 major parties, so la-di-da. But that's the thing. So to them, when they choose a leader, they know that according to their instructions, in their form of democracy, republic, however you want to me, it's a completely new and different form of government. I don't think it has a name. Maybe it's the peace government. But they know that these people have to be able to be humble enough and open-minded enough to sit and listen. So they do that Thanksgiving address. That puts them in the correct state of mind to do that. And then they do this amazing thing where one person speaks and then there's silence. And everybody just sits with what that person has said. Because if you really listen to someone, they might have an idea that was better than the one you walked in with. So if you think about it for a while, then rather than just jumping up and saying what you've been thinking about, then maybe there's a way to either change your mind, shift to what they're talking about, or put together your idea with their idea. Because if your focus is always on what's best for your people, not for you, then you're calm and you're patient and you're listening to everyone's idea, and not just listening, but actually considering. So that's why there's this silence between each speaker. This takes a long time. But if we trust our leaders to make good, fair laws, and then they make those laws, the laws are brought back to our community, and the clan mothers who heard the law. They're sort of like the Supreme Court. They've heard the law. They have all approved it. So the 50 men are like our two houses of Congress, older brothers, younger brothers, and the fire keepers. And instead of one president, the fire keepers are like our president. They have 14, which, by the way, Benjamin Franklin did not want one president. He wanted 3. And he wanted all of them to have to agree in order for a law to pass. He didn't get his way. Thomas Jefferson did not get his way on majority rule. He did get his way on the whole idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that was pretty good. But the whole idea among the Haudenosaunee is that every law that they do make leads to the people's happiness. Because where there is happiness, there is peace. If I'm happy, you're happy. We're happy together. We're not fighting each other. But you have to be willing to choose people who are like that. We are constantly talking about picking the lesser of two evils. Picking the lesser of two evils is still picking evil. The universe doesn't hear anything other than, oh, these people are only interested in picking leaders who are evil. Okie dokie. They want to function on that low energy level. We'll be happy to accommodate them. And yet, we look at the Haudenosaunee who managed to adapt this way of governing themselves, this very challenging way of governing themselves, and managed to live in peace for over 1,000 years. There isn't a nation on earth, I think, that can make that claim, much less 5 nations working together. In the 1720s, the Tuscarora joined, so today there are 6 nations. So that's the fundamental of the way that their government works. And in the next session, I will go into a little bit more detail about who they are and what they do in order to get this government to work, and why it's a little bit different today than in the original instructions, though I adhere to the Peacemakers' original instructions. I want to make that clear. So again, I asked a question and received an answer for, so if I loved you, what would change? What would you know? And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking about the idea of if I loved my enemy, like the Bible says, love your enemy, like Jesus said, love your enemy, right? If I loved you and showed you that, what would change? What would you know? What would you know about me? What would we know about each other? So here's the answer. The change would be in all you see, from up above to down to me, from swirling forests' ancient sound, to all that's here and ever bound, to this true place where you can be the miracle of all you see. To love the other is the one that brings your travels past the sun. To love is not a little heart. To love is where there's only art. And art does not just come from here. It comes from far beyond this sphere. So you can see it in this place and understand its truest grace. So you can know it in your mind and leave all other paths behind. The path that's right, the path that's true, has branches out from me to you, and star to star and one to all. It is the path that you can call into your inner highest place, into your inner state of grace. There is no conflict, noise, or fear where you are going, and it's near. It's near to you. It's near to me. It's near to those who truly see the inner smile of heaven's gate, the outer love that is our fate. This place of life, light, this other realm, is where we all are at the helm of ancient dreams and ancient sparks. It is the place far from the dark. But from the dark the light did come, and will again if we are one. So oneness is our edict here. That is the way. It is so clear. So, thank you for joining me. I wish you peace and love and joy. And I hope to be with you again next week as we continue a little bit more on the great law of peace. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us for Home Improvement for the Soul. If you'd like more information, please go to womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. That's womensoneness.com or maddiecheers.com. See you on the next episode.